Hey, welcome back. So I just lost an episode. The audio didn't work. It's working now. But this microphone, I mean, it's done good for me, but I need a new microphone, I guess, because whenever I touch it, it just stops. It's kind of frustrating. I hope that doesn't happen when I do the podcast. Oh, that would be bad. Or maybe good. But hopefully the game audio should be working. I don't know. It didn't work last week. Whatever. So I've always kind of thought like I should just do like a practice first episode, because it always takes me a long time to like get revved up or whatever. And like the first episode's always the worst. So maybe it's good that I lost it. I was talking about racism. I want to try to talk about it again, but so here's the deal. Today's Tuesday, and I'm going back home tomorrow for Christmas, so that's why I'm recording today. So I don't have too much to talk about, but I have enough for a couple days, so I'll just do like 3 or 4 days. But today and yesterday, what I tried to talk about was Team of Rivals. I have one. I could do that for like one tiny little note. Team of Rivals is the book I'm reading about Abraham Lincoln. I talked about it last week. So I had a quote from the Lincoln-Douglas debate that I liked. So, Lincoln-Douglas debates are like the most famous debates ever. For the Illinois Senate in 1958. Lincoln was a Republican, Douglas was a Democrat, and so Douglas, I guess, was kind of hitting Lincoln on the slavery thing, obviously, because that was like the biggest thing at the time. They just kept debating about slavery. And Douglas would kind of make jokes like, oh, Lincoln will tell you that black people are equal in intelligence and moral or intellectual aptitude. No, whatever. And then the narrator's like, and then the crowd laughed. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like Douglas would say, black people are stupid, and then the crowd would like laugh. It's awful. Oop. Come on. When I played this last time, somehow I got a timeout. Like, I ran out of time. How did that happen? Oh, whatever. Oh, that's cool. Okay, here's the quote. There is no reason in the world why black people are not entitled to all the natural rights enumerated in the Declaration of Independence. I agree with Douglas. He is not my equal in many respects, in color and moral endowment and intellectual endowment, but in the right to eat the bread without leave of anybody else, which his own hand earns. He is my equal and the equal of every living man. So that's why Lincoln got elected, because he wasn't as radical as Seward and Chase and these other people who were like big abolitionists, and they would use moral arguments like, oh, Democrats are Hitler. No, they wouldn't say that. But I'm sure they made comparisons to like the Old Testament, like pharaohs and Moses and stuff. And like, you're morally the devil. You're the worst people in the world. And Lincoln won the more conservative Republicans because he was like, he says it, like, I agree with Douglas. He is not my equal in many respects. In morality and intellectual endowment. Like he wasn't able to say, I don't know, in the book they say like nobody ever heard Abraham Lincoln say anything racist, and like Frederick Douglass liked him, so he was never racist. I mean, technically what he just said there is racist, but he wasn't able to say, like when you think about what Douglass is saying, it's insane, because he's saying like, oh, black people are stupid. Well, obviously they're not as smart as you because they didn't go to college. They're slaves. What do you want them to do? This is stupid. Oh. Uh-oh. And how are you supposed to... Morality? What does that mean? How are they more moral than you? You're the slavers. What? How are you more moral owning slaves? That doesn't make sense. But Lincoln was like, okay. I mean, he might have believed that stuff. I don't know. They just thought of black people like they thought of Native Americans, and they're like, oh, they're savage people and stuff. They didn't think of them as humans. But Lincoln, he was able to kind of weave those like, okay, I'm not gonna be this way, and I'm not gonna So he was like, I like that. Just well, he was able to reach the middle ground, the people in the middle who were like, yeah, okay, that actually does make sense. Like, these black people, they're humans, and they're working. They should have the freedom to buy, like, their own food and in their own houses. They're not better than me, but they have that right. Oops. The interesting thing that I was just reading is like Lincoln, it seemed like his main goal was to keep the Union together, obviously. But I was even reading, like, I think this was his proposal, like, to actually make an amendment to keep no, I don't think it was Lincoln, it was somebody else, but like Lincoln kind of agreed with it. To keep slavery in the South. Like, if the South was going to leave, and they were trying to figure out, how are we going to figure out how to keep the South? And somebody came up with an idea of like, okay, let's make an amendment that keeps slavery in the South, but the thing that everybody was worried about, the Republicans, was about slavery expanding into the new states. So they're like, okay, if we kind of appease the South and say like, okay, your slavery's fine, we're not going to touch it. But the big thing they were talking about was popular sovereignty in the new states, which is just like, you get to decide if you want to be a free state. Like, the people will just vote if they want to be a free state or not in the new states. But the South's like, I don't know, whatever. that was the point. But I think Lincoln, like, from what I'm understanding, is like he was willing to appease the South to keep the Union together, but the South just like eventually had enough, and they were, which is kind of interesting because you never think about Lincoln and appeasement, right? You think about him being like, no, we gotta fight the South, and we gotta stop slavery. But it seemed like he was willing to be like, if we can make a compromise and get these people, he was willing to keep slavery. He was. But the South kind of just left, and they didn't give him a choice. So the South probably should have taken that deal if they really wanted slavery so bad. There we go. Um, yeah, even the most progressive people in that time thought that black people and white people couldn't live together, which is kind of interesting. And they were kind of right at first, I guess. Well, obviously what happened after slavery was illegal is just like, well, they just kind of made new laws that were like, well, it's Jim Crow stuff. Like, well, it's kind of not slavery, but also kind of like, you don't be around us. But I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's like they enslaved these people, and now they want to live together. It's gonna be tough, and it was tough, but we did it, right? We're trying. We're doing okay. My neighbor in New Jersey was black, and he said hi to me, so slavery's over, and racism's over. I liked that guy. He would sometimes in the morning I saw him, and he'd be like, "Hey, good morning." And I'd be like, "Hey." This is the last note. I'm kind of speed running this now because I know what I'm doing. Oh, the Wokest man of 1830. His name was... What do I do here? Uh-oh. Oh. His name was Alexis de Tocqueville. She was talking about in the book this guy, like this French guy who was like a writer or philosopher or something. And in 1830, I mean, there were a lot of people saying, like, slavery is immoral and bad, but he was the only one saying, like, okay, even after slavery is gone, we're still going to have, like, these systemic problems. Like, okay, slavery's gone, but, like, all the judges are going to be white, so, like, they can just judge them and be like, okay, still kind of, I mean, that's what happened with Jim Crow laws. It's like, okay, but black people still, you're not really equal to us. Most people in that time were like, even the most progressive people, they were just like, okay, we're going to free the slaves, but they kind of have to go back to Africa because they can't stay here, right? What are we going to do? We can't. And there were some proposals, but I think at the time there was like 3 million black people in the South, and it's just like, what? You're going to send 3 million black people back to Africa? How is that going to work? It's not. And it didn't. And that's why I gotta end there. That's why Lincoln was like, okay, it's just like, let's keep slavery. What else? We it's like a sin that we can't get rid of. There's nothing we can do. And the only reason slavery stopped was because the South kind of forced their hand with the war. And Lincoln cared more about the Union than he did. He cared more about keeping the Union together than he cared about ending slavery. Because if he was able to keep the Union together and keep slavery, he would have. But at that point, once they won the war, it's like, okay, no more slavery. But if there wasn't a war, there would still be slavery. I don't know how long it would have lasted. Hopefully not too much longer. Like, but I don't know. It probably would have lasted for like another, at least till the 1900s. Another 40 years. So, I mean, maybe we would still have like Jim Crow type stuff today. Who knows? Because we'd be like 50 years behind. How do I do this now? Okay. But yeah, hopefully, okay, sounds still good. I just can't touch it. I can't touch the microphone. Don't touch it. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye.